Well, folks, welcome to AJUG. Today, there's actually a lot of stuff happening right now, and the first is Java 1's happening now, and there was a big announcement. Oracle is releasing Graal, I think it's the, well, first of all, for the most part, it's the native compiler, they're releasing it to the JDK. So now, that technology is going to be shared across all the JDK, so that's going to actually be pretty awesome to have that available. The other thing we'll talk about a little bit later is we're also celebrating Hacktober month. How many folks have heard of Hacktober? Okay, well, we'll cover that in just a second, don't you worry about it. So, but before too much ado, somebody paid the bill, so we want to thank our sponsors for sponsoring us for the room and DevNexus. So we want to say a special thank you to them. Upcoming events, we have Connect Tech that's coming up on November 7th to 9th. So if you're doing a lot of UI development, Nerando, are you speaking at Connect Tech this year? Or?
Yes, I am.
So, all right, Naraju's going to be there giving a talk, and you'll find out he's a fantastic speaker. So, get your tickets. It's actually one of the best events in Atlanta outside of this one. And Refactor. And so, DevNexus we're accepting papers now. So, it is going to be the first week of April. So if you are interested in submitting a talk, now is the time. I highly encourage, and you're going to hear more about this as we go through, different ways you can contribute to OSS. And one of them is actually talk at conferences and meetups. We'll cover more of that in a bit. So with that being said, let's get started. Well, I guess what we're going to be covering tonight is how to get in OSS. Right, so, and we'll cover the whys we want to get into it. We're also going to kind of cover some of the basic terminology as well as the flow and a couple of gotchas. There's going to be 2 talks that are going to be provided tonight, where I'm going to be talking more about just some of the basic definitions and, like I said, the gotchas and the general flow. And Raji's going to come up and tell you about a real-world experience of how you can do this through hackathons and through public contributions. And again, his personal experience in it, which is an awesome story. So, who am I? My name is Glenn. I am one of the developers for Spring. I am a VMware engineer, and they are the sponsor for the Spring project. So, I work on the Spring Cloud, in the Spring Cloud ecosystem as far as Spring Cloud Tasks, Spring Cloud Data Flows, and Spring Batch. And if Oleg lets me, occasionally he'll let me actually contribute to Spring Cloud Stream. So, I kind of go wherever they need me to go. When I'm not doing that, I'm on the board of directors and a volunteer at AJUG. Which means I'm also on the board of directors and volunteer for DevNexus. There's another volunteer here that goes to DevNexus, a board member, volunteer over there. So it is the highest paying job I have. I get paid in jackets, t-shirts, caps, and book bags. It's pure volunteer organization. So we're going, if you ever have an opportunity, you want to kind of jump into that ecosystem, we're always looking for volunteers. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, what is open source software? Open source software really, as I looked at, there's several definitions. I'm trying to find the most concise one. There's one that someone told me, something you could tell a 5-year-old they can understand. I went, okay, what about a 4-year-old? Because that's kind of my intelligence level. But what they said basically is this: it is basically a project that you can utilize, but you also have the source code that you can actually have access to, so you can actually change and alter the behavior of that application or that project through the source code up until you reach your licensing agreement. So we'll even talk a little bit more about licensing as the gotcha section. All right, I get to ask you questions now. How many of you use Git? Okay. How many of you have a GitHub account? Oh, that's cool. How many of you actually contributed to open source before? Woo, look at there, sweet. So this is actually the perfect audience. So they can call BS on me, and y'all can learn that I don't know what I'm talking about through them. This is awesome. So with that being said, why should we get into open source? The things that we look at is oftentimes when we look at open source project, there's a lot of times there's features that we need. If it's something for the company that I'm working for, it would be great if they would have this feature to a project, like in my case, a Spring project. I certainly need it, but what I can do is not only can I give the suggestion to the developers through an issue or GitHub issue, but maybe I can also contribute that code too. One of the two reasons I do that is one, so I can have deeper experience into the project, which we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but also maybe they say, yes, this is a great idea, but we just don't have the resources to do it, right? So, and with that, maybe if I can submit a code with that feature, guess what? I'll have that feature in sooner. The other is that I can also contribute bug fixes, right? Again, same similar scenario. I find the bug, I report the bug, they acknowledge the bug, but then again, they say, well, yep, we agree it's a bug, but it's actually kind of a lower priority bug versus this other stuff. But to you, it is actually way more important, a higher level. You can also contribute codes back to the project so that that code actually gets fixed and what comes back down and will be managed by the project itself. Now, how many of you are introverts? Okay, wow, we have a lot of extroverts here. Okay, for us introverts, so y'all have to stay quiet over there. I'm talking just
We're too introverted to raise our
You lead it with the wrong question.
What's that?
You lead it with the wrong question. You should say, who's an extrovert?
Who is an extrovert here? Oh my God, Lee! Okay, I want to take a picture of this because I've never had more extroverts than introverts before.
Introverts on Zoom.
Huh?
The introverts on Zoom.
Hi, everybody. But the wonderful thing is that I was going to say, for introverts or extroverts, it's a wonderful place to actually contribute back. When you contribute back to an open source project through issues or what we call PRs, we'll talk about that in a second. You've also entered into a community that you're actually transacting with and talking to, not only through those issues, but through comments. But the other thing is that you also have the ability to contribute back to open source projects through events like we talked about earlier, AJUG. And sometimes when we think about how can I actually get involved in something like an AJUG or a DevNexus, what can I do? Well, part of it is that we always need volunteers to help us set up the meetings. We also need people that can just come in and help us, plan out what we're going to do, right? So there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes, even when we're even not edited it. As you all know, it's like, okay, we need to move this over here, we need to set this up or tear this down. There's a lot of moving parts, and volunteers are the heart of any open source project, but it's also what? You need to be becoming a part of that community. Oh, by the way, I have this shirt. So I'm actually an introvert that pretends to be an extrovert. But with that being said, the other thing is when you also are contributing to an open source project, what you gain knowledge of that project, right? You actually increase your knowledge. And the other thing that also happens to me is if I'm working on something for a long time, I get bored, right? How can I learn something new so that I can exercise my brain? Well, sometimes what I'll do is do something that's called orthogonal, something that's oft different than what I normally do. One of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be learning a new project. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But the reason I'm learning this new project is it's not exactly my sweet spot to work at, but it's something that I'm like, this is really cool. It's going to increase my knowledge, and guess what? It's going to be a lot of fun for this up here. So the other thing is resume building, right? Oftentimes when we go into, we want to change, we're in my current company, I want to go to a project, or I want to go to a different company maybe, and they have this tool suite. They say, well, you need to know this, this, and this. I'm like, hey, I've studied it at home, I've played with it, I know how it works. We're like, yeah, but have you ever used it in real? A lot of times in those cases, we're like, no, I just worked with it at home. A lot of open source projects have opportunities for you to actually jump in and actually commit code to it. So that's something you can add to your resume. It's like, no, you work at a company, but I certainly have these PRs out there that I can provide you and show you, or you can actually hit a project and go look at contributors and see that I'm one of the contributors to it. So you're actually kind of a subject matter expert on that project. So we're going to talk a little bit about tools. What tools do we have? Well, it's GitHub. We'll have another tool out there. I'm going to keep that one secret for just a minute. But GitHub is basically a repository for almost all open source projects. There's a few that still kind of don't put their stuff out there, but they are actually a very small dwindling number. And basically through GitHub, you can host your open source project for no charge. I can open an account. I can host as many repositories that are openly available at no charge. GitHub also offers the ability for you to document and wiki up your applications. How many have heard of GitHub Actions before? All right, so if you're using GitHub Actions to just test your builds as PRs as they're coming in, also a lot of companies are using it to do full deployments through the GitHub Actions. How many of you actually hit the period key on your GitHub account? When you go to the GitHub page on your project, how many of you actually hit the period? Okay, I'm going to ask at the end. So it looks like we have one person that knows, but we might even open up and show you what happens at the end of my presentation. What happens when you hit the period on it? Really cool tool, lots of nuances that you can go in there and play with, and for most open source projects, free. There are two hats that we have in the contributing or in the open source community. There are two roles that we have. One is a contributor, and that's going to be represented by the hat on the left with the wrench, and the one with the green plus on the side is what we call a committer. The contributor is everybody in this room. It is a person that contributes either code or knowledge to an open source project. Okay? And you're like, knowledge, what's that? So always remember, any person that just gives back, you're instantly a contributor. Things that you do, you can contribute, or through this, like I said, just your ideas come in through issues. These are the things that you contribute back to an open source project that says, here is an idea. Not only am I going to tell you about the idea, I'm going to tell you the benefit to your project and to the community. It's important when you add those issues that you don't only tell us what it is, but what's the value it brings to that project or to the community. So issues are oftentimes communicated through an open source or through GitHub, through issues. But just because that issue is there does not mean that issue is dead and only meant for committers, those people that own the project. You can also come in and add comments to it. That issue stays alive. And also, I've seen many times where I have an issue that's opened up by somebody, I'll see about 25 thumbs up on it. Then I see people just saying, what about this? Can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? An issue is knowledge. That's where we're reaching out to the community and saying, tell us what you want to see. The other way which you communicate with an open source project is through PRs. These are the actual code contributions. This is where you go off, you work on your code, and you signal to us to saying, hey, I have this branch on my local repository of your project. I would like to merge this into your code base. Right? Many of us do this on a regular basis, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But the two ways in which we communicate with an open source project is through issues, and well, actually it's three ways, but also through the PRs. So, what can I contribute to an open source project? Well, the classic is code, right? I have a knowledge, I have code, I want to share that, I want to put that bug fix in, I want to get that feature in there, here's my code, here's my tests, go for it, right? But the other thing is, a lot of people also don't realize is documentation. Documentation is one of the most critical factors of any project that needs contributions to. It's not only the stuff that we missed talking about, it's not talking about just grammatical mistakes, it's also bugs in the documentation. How many of y'all had a bug in documentation that cost you time? I had one this last week, cost me 2 hours. I submitted a bug report and a PR to fix it. And it was basically all their documents in the build file, or they said, here, add this plugin, this is perfectly set up, all you gotta do is copy and paste. Big mistake. But in this case, there was a hiccup in it. And what I did was I said, oh, it affected my entire build. And I went, wait a minute, hold on, let me take a look. And I saw it resolved it. Documentation is critical. And oftentimes, if you want to get into an open source project, it's the best place. Another overlooked one is architecture. Wait a minute, architecture? What about something that's like version 2, 3, 4? It's been out there for years. What kind of architecture changes can there be? There's always the architectural improvements that we can make to a project. You can look at a project and see how it's designed, and if you see an architectural flaw or something that makes it more flexible, or it's missing a domain, go ahead and submit the issue. And the thing is, what you're going to say is, well, if it's a mature project, how can we re-architect? The goal is that in any major project, you're going to have major releases. At those major releases, that's when we're going to apply sometimes breaking changes, like you go to 2.0 to 3.0. That's when we go back and look at these architectural issues, right? And then we say, okay, here's an architectural change that we make. This is a good one. Let's put it in. Always look for architectural opportunities to update your favorite open source project. But then there's another level. Let's go back to the documentation. A lot of times these projects don't have documentation on the architecture itself. Anywhere that you can apply architectural improvements, bugs, or even documentation is a beautiful thing for a project. Stack Overflow, the best place to copy and paste stuff, right? The thing is, remember about Stack Overflow is how is that open source project? Oftentimes, how projects say, we'd rather you not ask questions in issues, we'd rather you ask questions in something like Stack Overflow. Issues are really meant for bugs and enhancements, right? It's those things that's that communication to make the project better or to report actual problems. Questions are extremely valuable. The two best things that you can get that are worth their weight in gold through Stack Overflow is a well-written question, a well-written bug that says, this is what I found, this is the version I found it in, here's a very good description of how you reproduce it, and even the best thing, here's a small piece of sample code that actually shows you the problem in action. That's worth its weight in gold to anybody who's trying to support the project and trying to solve this question. You say, because sometimes these questions are bugs, sometimes it's just misuse, but if we can see it, we can say, oh, all you have to do is this and this in your code and it'll work. It's amazing how fast things come in that way. But then the other thing is, don't be afraid to answer a question. A well-researched answer is worth its weight in platinum, right? And that is because if you go in and you answer that question with this, well, it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can tell you, one of the Spring engineers, he did contribute open source code. It was great open source code. But what really gathered everybody's attention was this developer's ability to answer questions in Stack Overflow. This person would go in and answer any and every question. And not only that, it was well written, well documented, well researched. And we're not talking like, big answers like that. We're talking about just a well-written paragraph or even a well-written sentence. It was just saying, oh, this, and this. And when it was time to hire, we're like, are you by chance looking for a job? And now he's like an Uber developer at Spring. You'll be surprised. Very valuable tool. That's the second tool. The other is to have just go up in front of a bunch of people and wave a clicker around. Okay, maybe not quite that. It's the ability to actually come up and contribute to an open source project by teaching other people about it. Sharing your experience with people about the open source project, how you used it, how you successfully, how it shouldn't be used, right? This is a critical factor for any open source project, is the ability to communicate what it can and can't do. And this is oftentimes done through going up and presenting it into front of other people. Now, like I said, I'm an introvert that pretends to be an extrovert, but the way I started my talks were just lightning talks. And sometimes a lightning talk's hard because you're trying to keep it under that 10 or 15 minute limit. But it's a great way to get started and to be able to not only learn something new, but and also get a deeper knowledge, going back to things we talked about before, that deeper knowledge is just to present on. I'm going to be submitting a talk, whether it gets accepted or not, on something called modulus. How many have heard of modulus yet? Okay, basically modulus is, okay, we've heard about microservices, right? Raise your hand about microservices. I mean, we'll throw up when you hear about microservices. No, but seriously, no, great tool. Monoliths, a small monolith is very valuable. The modulus says, look, what if I could create a context around the modules in a project and be able to write a monolith that's well structured, that has each module is well tested in a solid piece of a contributing whole. I've actually done some reading on it, but I want to do a presentation on it. And then I reached out to the developer who did it and said, would you mind if I gave you don't have to do this, I just did it. And I said, do you mind if I gave a talk on it? He said, when is it ever a bad idea to give a talk on modules? And so the thing is I'm going to actually, over the next 3 months, I'm going to, actually 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to be writing up a good abstract, submitting abstract, and then I'm going to be spending November, December, and January doing deep dive into it so I can write a qualified great talk. That is going back into that section I was talking about. Getting into open source is not just contributing code, it's not just contributing documentation, which is valuable, please, answering questions. It's also sharing with others. Something that people oftentimes overlook as well, and I would be included, is testing. When we look at an open source project, have you ever looked at how well they test their stuff? Okay? Are their tests accurate? Are there errors in their tests? Are they giving back false positives? Are the tests well written? Are the tests covering the full suite that the project can do? A very valuable contribution I look to in my project is somebody that writes a test. Wow, that's all they did. No, that's wow. Even though that test, it will succeed now. It could be in 5 builds from now that it finds a bug that I introduced. Testing is a very valuable contribution to any open source project. And also remember, anytime you submit a PR to an open source project, it will instantly get rejected if you have no tests. So anytime you do an open source outside documentation, but open source code contributions got to be tested. The other thing to remember is that we also have people that are called committers. Committers are the people that typically have either started the project or they have done a lot of contributions, or like we talked about before, answered a lot of questions on Stack Overflow, or they've done a lot of talks, or you can see where they are not only just a person that is very invested in the project, but are also looking at the future of the project, will be invited to be a committer. A committer is a person that drives the direction of an open source project. They're the ones that are responsible for the code in the project, responsible for the documentation of the project, the proper release of the project, and as we all know, the security of the project and patches, yada, 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 down the line. But the thing to also remember is that when you submit your code, a committer is also responsible for making sure that when they look at the code, remember, when they do that code review, what they're going to be looking at is that, does this code answer the problem that's being requested, or does it solve the feature, solve the bug, has it got tested, and does it meet the structure? And then if it doesn't, they may come back and give you, a request to fix. And some people say, man, they were mean or they're really rough. And I'm like, no, look at it, change your voice of the issue that they raised. A lot of times it's passive. It may be read as active or harsh, but a lot of times it's a very passive tone. It's like, can you please change this or update this? And that way, what they're saying is that, we can sometimes make those changes upon merge, what we call polishing, but we typically don't like to do that because sometimes you put that code there and it might be a reason that you wanted it that way. So if we do tag you and say, hey, can you update this? You have the right to come back and say, no, actually this is right because blank, and guess what, you just taught us so. Okay? Now, I'm going to quote Jeannie from Aladdin here. There are always these little themes, quid pro quos, all the little things that can happen on an open source project. The first thing to remember is licensing. Typically, open source projects are MIT or Apache licensed, and when they are when they're licensed that way, pull it down at your own risk, use it, have fun, alter it, do whatever you want to with it. But there are many other licenses out there. When you go to your open source project, before you pull it in, make sure you read the license, because there's some licenses that say, hey, pull it down, use it all you want, but the first time you change a line of code, guess what? You got to send us that updated line of code. You got to submit a PR on it, right? So read the licenses. And I know it's tedious, but it is something that I would highly recommend. The other is what we're going to talk about is when you submit a PR to an open source project, we're going to also ask you to do what's called a committer license agreement, or CLA. Basically saying you're releasing the code to us. And we're going to say, thank you so much for it, but you know that when you submit the code and we accept it, it belongs to the public. It's for the world. So we'll ask you to do that. The other thing is we're going to ask you to read the code of conduct. A code of conduct basically says that we want to have an open environment for people to come in and contribute to. And we basically establish the rules of how we want people to communicate. Most of the time, it is never a problem. I think I've had maybe one instance, and it was actually at a conference where somebody was actually violating the code of conduct, and I had to go out and tag them and say, look, chill out, dude, relax. Let's talk about this. So, also, it's just a good idea to look at it, see what the expectations are in any open source project as far as code of conduct is concerned. Now, the other thing to remember is your company. Oftentimes when you work for a company, they may have a set policy on you contributing to open source projects. So anytime you think about contributing to open source project, check with your boss first. Make sure it's okay for them that you contribute code. And please do never submit proprietary code. That's uber bad. But I don't, the goal is just check with your company. I don't want you to get in trouble for submitting open source code. Other is standards. A lot of projects have standards, and most of the times, when I used to talk about standards, it's like, okay, you got to make sure when you submit your code, we're going to tag you and all this good stuff. Those standards are enforced by compile time. Basically, there's static checks that we run that says, oh, by the way, you got space here, you're missing a space there, oh, you need to change this, whatever. A lot of the standards are applied right up front at build time. There's always times when you submit code and we'll say, yeah, can you write it better this way? But usually, most of that's handled through compile time. Classic is how many are your spaces over tabs? Spaces over tabs? How many use tabs? Okay, so Spring is a tab. I'm always a space person. And the first few reviews I had is spaces. Okay. So that being said, just remember that there different projects have standards on that. The other thing to remember is that when we look at how do I know where to even get started at? A lot of projects, when you go out to their issues, you'll see labels associated with each of the issues. If you ever see one that says first contributor or first time contributor, basically this says, look, come on in, this is an easy one, you can get in, do your PR, or it's just something fixed, you submit a PR, you get free credit. Like, a classic hackathon type of thing where, not hackathon, but Hacktoberfest. Hacktoberfest, for those who don't know, in the month of October, you have the ability, if you can register with them at hacktober.com, or I think it's Hacktober, is it Hacktober.com? Hacktoberfest.com. And basically, if you register and you're one of the 40,000 that register, if you get 4 PRs merged, they send you a t-shirt or plant a tree in your name. You choose. I think even some of the other sponsors may send you some swag if you register with them as well. But what you look for is this first-time contributor, and basically it says, look, this is a great way just to kind of get through that first one so you can get used to the process. Another one is called Ideal for Contribution. This is an issue where the people who wrote the issue, an issue where there's a bug or a feature, have spent extra time to detail exactly how to fix it. And basically, it allows you to go through that whole process and understand what to fix. And then when you begin the process, they'll walk you through and spend extra time with you as you go through that process of getting your code into that project. I won't lie to you, these go fast. Okay, so if you see one, grab it, because usually when I set them out, I do it a few times a year for like Spring Cloud Task and Dataflow. And when I do that, they've usually gone literally in seconds. I say seconds. Literally in an hour. And I've actually had it where I had established a policy saying the first one that meets the standard, or actually the first one that commits and has the CLA, Computer License Agreement signed, you win. I walk you through the process. Okay, and have to apologize to the others. Real quick, the other thing we'll talk about is if you're interested in if you've never had to clone a project, please take a picture of this or wait till the video comes out. This is a great way to talk about how to just get that first clone of your project. And what you're going to do is you're going to want to call fork a project. That is literally clicking a button on your GitHub page of the project. Then you're going to do get clone, and then you're going to clone the project to your local machine. And at that time, you're going to also assign the CLA. Then the next process is that you're going to create a checkout. You're going to check out a branch for the feature or the bug you're going to fix. You do your magic, and then you're going to commit with a message. Don't overlook the commit message. But I can read the code and tell you what you did, and then don't know why you did it. Okay? The why oftentimes may release to just a issue number and say, hey, I resolved this issue by doing this. But if it's just a straight PR out of the blue, please tell me why you did it. Chris Beams did a great write-up on this here. So just like, what makes a good commit message? So this is an awesome thing to also have. So if you want to take a picture of that, take a picture of that. It's an old article, but well written. Okay? Then what you're going to do is push to GitHub. And then once you've done that, you're going to submit your PR. And that's when I'm going to put on my commit hat. I'm going to review it. And then if it's got a hiccup or request changes, remember changes are always going to be as a passive voice. Please change it, please. And yeah, I did get up and stomp my feet. I look at my watch and say, yes, that was considered exercise, good. And then we go through, begin the process again, find the emergency PR. We will not be doing the demo tonight, but I will say thank you. And we're going to give it over to Nerando. He's going to give you an introduction and kind of really tell you about the real life experience of it and how you can do hackathons.
Nerando is actually the name. Nerando is my handle on Twitter. I go by it. It's kind of pointless to change it anymore since I've had it by the 9th grade. So, since the 9th grade, which is about, it's been a minute. Alright, so I may or may not be at this for about 30 to 40 minutes. So my title is Open Source Learning. So while Glenn covered what it's about, how it's about, I will tackle the other hand of using the tools that there are to better your craft. Now, most persons in this room, I am reading faces and I know a couple, have been doing this for a while, so I really don't need to tell you how to learn. However, because we keep learning and it keeps getting annoying because every 2 to 3 years we have to either retool or add something else to the tool shed, might as well go at it. So, this is my second career. I used to teach high schoolers science for a decade. So there is no more fun than teaching 13-year-olds and they get to sexual reproduction and you have to find the nicest, gentlest way to express it with carrying on a class. So I can pull that off. This is not that bad. And it was a mixed class, so that's way more fun. All right, so this is my story. So I started, while teaching science, I started trying to find ways to get my students to better learn whatever I was learning, teaching. So slideshows after a while didn't work. So I'm like, all right, cool. YouTube came out. I'm like, ooh, YouTube. Small videos, that worked. I'm like, okay. And then a friend of mine who we went to college together, he was a lab tech, he's like, you can make drag and drop. I'm like, don't get you. And he taught me how to use Flash. That was it. Flash, quizzes and all of that. And I'm like, I think I might like this. I started to learn Notepad. Then Notepad++. Extensions were my friend. I was in heaven. Nobody could tell me nothing. I eventually got to the first version of CS50. Then the day of code that I think Google's first version came out today. So I'm slowly learning. As you can tell, I never did this computer science thing because I was one of them kids everybody tells, oh, your math grade's not good enough for you to do this. I hardly see the reason to use math in my day-to-day work anymore, but I understand it's something that we do need. Then I got entangled with Free Code Camp while I was in the Caribbean. Moved here, realized that communities were a thing, pushed on with it until I got to the point of being one of the organizers for it here. Did enough community work. There's a story out there with a couple friends and I, where from Free Code Camp we did a hackathon solving paratransit problems in Atlanta. We brought some light to it. We won the hackathon, signed an agreement between friends to donate the money that we made from the hackathon. Never knew how much money we would make. Got $40,000 and gave it all away. We're still upset because we signed the agreement before we won the competition. But it's one of the coolest stories I have to tell for the rest of my life. I currently kind of sort-ish work. My last day work was Friday, but that's when I was third round at the time, and I still randomly do stuff. My future goals is to be a farmer with about 2,000 acres of land and an antique car connoisseur, that I never have to touch a computer again. That's the end goal. But the most important part of all of this is that I figured out ways to get from not knowing to knowing. So I literally just hacked it or built it. That was just me half the time. I was just figuring it out as I go. Asked me 4 years ago, how good I would get at Git. I could not tell you to save my life. But I figured it out. All right. Here's my disclaimers. Anything I talk about tonight is based on what I've learned, seen, done myself, taught others, and seen work It's not gospel, it's close enough. And I'm biased because I've discovered that the biggest problem that tech has overall is that we're wonderful at talking about the topics, but we are horrible at teaching it. So you people walk in the room and I hear the marvelous word, oh, this is easy. I will pick a fight with you any day of the week. Because without context, nothing is easy. Like, I can talk to you guys and I can say, hey, I can feed everybody in this room in under 3 hours with money on the table. And everybody goes, oh, that's hard. I'm like, no, it's easy. Why? My parents are cooks. So I prepped way more food than I'd like to live. And that's easy for me because I have knowledge and context. Tech does a horrible thing where the persons who have the knowledge and the context don't know how to pass it down. So that's a problem for me. So everything I'm saying tonight is biased. All right. To get to a new place, my mother said it years ago when I was worrying about what to do next as a career. But this is basically it. You have the tools, resources to get to the next level where you want to go. You have to figure out what's your purpose, figure out how to use whatever resources you have, and discipline enough to get there. But it's doable. Like, when I was learning my thing, my school we didn't have a computer lab for junior school. But I'm like, okay, can this be done? Somebody's like, maybe. I'm like, all right, cool. What do you need? Write a letter to the banks. Banks donate all computers. I'm like, okay. Can I get cables? Somebody's like, why do you need cables? Just give me the damn cables. They're like, all right, cool. So I got RJ45 cables. I built a server from parts. I was resourceful enough because I wanted resources for my kids. Weekends, nights, when I was finished, out of 20 units, I built a 12-unit lab with 2 backups. So you have to be resourceful, and with the internet now, the possibilities are endless. All right, my definition of open source. Basically using everything you have without cost or high cost, learning to get to better your craft. So whatever it is, that's you use. We can use whatever is online. Oddly enough, the libraries are very equipped to this day, depending on where you live in the city. I live on the south side, so sometimes I don't have all the books I need. Sometimes I have to reserve them on the town to find them, but you can find whatever tools you need. You have maker spaces. Some places are very open to say, hey, come along, but the tools are there. While I was researching this, I have a fascination with metalwork. I don't know why. Probably I was watching Hercules back in the day and saw the whole Hephaestus thing, and Hephaestus has never left my head because I like the whole idea of like making stuff. It's just my thing. While doing my research, this dude, David Preston, this is his definition because they realized that open source learning was actually a thing outside of traditional education. Please don't get me started on how traditional education does not properly equip us for the real world. Don't, because half of it is way more fun than it's supposed to be. But they realized after a while that we have enough resources. If you give us an outline, we have enough resources to get us to where we need to be as learners. Most of us here are video watchers and book learners when we need to tool up on a new skill, right? Right around? You read the new thing, go type it out, or you watch a video and go type it out, right? Me, on the other hand, I am more watch a thing, type it out, and listen to it. Like, podcasts are my saviors. Like, I understand Kubernetes before I even touched it the first time because somebody explained it very well. They're like, simplify it. Containers, list of instruction, runs one way all the time. They're like, oh yeah, this is like an old school ISO. I'm like, oh, I get images. Because everybody in this room should understand how an image works, how to mount an image on a drive, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Persons who are very new to this thing will go, what are you talking about? Yeah, we're coming from that far. All right, so before we start going down the whole road of figuring out how to learn on our own, you have to figure out where you are. So I'm currently between 2 and 3. I was at 1 where I was a newbie, where I'm like, oh, this is magic and I love it and it's fun. I'm now at how do I make this work, and I need to write docs and tests. That's where I'm at. But everybody here, for your own knowledge base, need to figure out where you are in order to figure out where you need to go. Glenn probably is at 4.
Probably 0.05.
You need coffee?
About 2 cups.
All right, cool. All right, so with the coffee, it should be between
About
3,
4, yeah.
between a 3 and a 4. Because the most persons here in this room go, yeah, it works, it's magic. Oh crap, we didn't write tests right. Or, if you're very disciplined, wise, and knowledgeable, you did it the other way around, where you wrote the documentation, wrote the test, and wrote the code. Challenge is that very rarely do we operate like that, but that's what you're supposed to do. And then you have the other persons who you're constantly having to learn new tools. So once you figure out where you are, you can figure out how do you learn, the methods you use. For me, and for self-assessment, my best teachers in school, I can tell you them from the 4th grade all the way up to college. The teachers that I loved and I loved their classes were always people who made learning practical. They made it applicable. They made it sacred. Like, it was like a science class for me was a religion. Math class on 2 occasions was a religion. After that, me. And oddly enough, I hated math and loved physics. They understood how I learned, and they got everybody involved, even the people who didn't really like the thing. So for us, we are going to have to figure out what works for us. Then you're going to have to flip the script, and you're going to have to do all of that for yourself. People are looking at me like, oh, okay. But most persons in here know how to do this for themselves. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But that's what you don't have to do for yourself. Because whether we like it or not, or learning in this field is our responsibility. In this wonderful age, very few times do our employers go, hey, I give you 4 hours every week, no matter what resources you want, go learn it. No. They will work you for all the 40, plus anything else they can get and go, oh yeah, you should know this. When do I have time to go learn something new? But it's your responsibility. And yeah, this was the difference between, this was a COVID cartoon of 2019 to 2020. It's one of my favorites. All right. So now that we've considered how to learn, we've considered where we are, we've considered who we are as learners, we need to use the ingredients to get us to where we need to go. So you got time, you got effort. You can't stay in the comfort zone because that's overrated. And the introverts in this room, I have bad news for you. Writing what you've learned in blogs, making lightning talks, and if I tell anybody in this room that I was introverted, they may never believe me because I will talk to everybody in this room. Because I knew for myself that in order for me to grow and learn, I need to talk to people. So I'm over my fear now. Was it easy? No. Am I peopled out after about 3 days? Definitely. But you can't stay in your comfort zone anymore, and you're going to have to change. Like who you were before this learning and who you are after are 2 different people. You should be fine with that. All right, so we've gotten the ingredients, now the plan. I should have had the cartoon up there with the 18 that says I love it when a plan comes together. We'll add that next. So, self-assessment is the first thing of figuring out where you are. How good are you at this thing? I'm asked, how do you learn? You already know that. You can figure out how you learn. My thing is always, once you've done the how do you learn, come self, all right, cool, this is what I've done. I work best with pencil and paper. I don't know, some persons can hold it in their head, but I like writing stuff. Then we ask a friend, a co-worker, a team lead to give us honest feedback. Good people have a bad habit of making you feel really crappy about the stuff that you dare to believe in if they're not real. You need those people. I have people on my team, my hackathon team, that literally pointed out to me that my JavaScript was hacky, and I did not like that. Did they care? No. They fed me more pizza and taught me how to do it better. That's what you need for yourself. You need people who sit with you and go, this is where you want to go. This is where you are. All of this crap here doesn't work to get you there. Then you make notes and you go for it. That's it. Act. Your job, do the work. My principles, my basic principles, not yours, not giving anybody any additional tools. This is just mine. You pick one thing first. I don't know how much persons can do more than one thing at the time, but between, for me, baking, cooking, walking, driving, you tend to do one thing at a time. I could go down the whole creation story evolution thing, but it tends to be just one thing working at a time. You can't divert your attention. Just one thing. You start at the front, not the middle, not where, hey, I think I should know this by now. No. Go through the documentations, write out the example that works at your level of challenge, work through that. Do not skip the damn steps, please. Don't be the 4-year-old who skips 2 steps at a time because one of them is going to be slippery, you're going to be on your behind. Then you make stuff. The best way to learn anything in this craft is to do things. Not read it. I'm sorry. Not listen to it, not watch it. Make stuff. Your own stuff, your test stuff, I don't care. And I may be talking to team leads here or people who've been doing this long enough. If it doesn't apply to you, you have people under you that you see that they need to do stuff. Side projects. Tell them, go make stuff. When I was at Magnolia, this was from, Jesus, I can't remember their podcast, but James Quick and the other person who was there, the best takeaway from their talk was learn, build, teach. When you finish learning stuff, come talk about it. Present it. This is what I built. It's built with this. This is how it should work. Here's an example of the code. Here's a finished example of it. Here's the documentation and the tests. All right. So we have all these big dreams to open source our learning using tools from everywhere. But you now need to be accountable for your own stuff, for your own learning. If you try to do it alone, most of us here, it will work for us. But I need my friends and I need a community. So if I say, hey, I'm going to build this thing for Hacktoberfest, I had a supervisor on me from Virtual Coffee, which I'm a member of, and she's like, hey, I haven't seen you done anything. I'm like, it didn't work out. She goes, why? And I told her, she goes, okay, cool. I still need you to go find other stuff to do. I'm that person. I also have friends who are seeking jobs. I say to them, I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. You haven't done anything. What's going on? Because I started their profile on GitHub, so I know what goes on. They're like, okay, cool. It helps you to grow. That's just me. An example of this is that I have really hard friends. They said to me, earlier on this year when I was working, no, don't scan it, I'm going to hold it, it's okay. I said to them, I'm going to try to work on some stuff this year. They're like, oh, you always say that. You hold people accountable, but you're not yourself. I was talking on the phone, on a group chat while working on a project. They bought a domain and built me a website. Let me show you this crap. Is it building? They built that website. So I have to update this every time I give a talk, write an article, and finish a project. Every time. I've got 12 weeks in the year, and I have to finish all of this. I'll never hear the end of it. Why are we laughing? This is not funny. You're laughing at my pain.
Laughing with you.
Oh, that's nice. That doesn't help me. All right. Next move. Consistency. We're loaded. We have a lot of things to do. Some of us have families, children, plants to go walk, and animals to water. Honestly, I'm going to say this and it's going to hurt. Nobody cares. You still need to get this done. So, 20 minutes a day. That's it. It's a habit. Build one feature that you don't like and just leave it done. You can do 30 days of code, 100 days of code, but you're going to have to find or make the time. I'm not great at that. My longest streak of code ever is 76 days. I'll do 4 days and quit, but for those of us who want to learn something new, I religiously will preach you going at it at least 5 to 6 days a week. If you have other things to do on the weekend or need a break, fine. I would also preach if you take a break, you take half of the time that you would take to write code to read what you've done. All right, community. I have ducted together mentors, both formal and informal. So formal, somebody who I have a weekly meeting with, we have goals, we have a written agreement, we have how I ask for help, we have how I do stuff, things I should read, look at, so on and so forth. And I have the wonderful responsibility of finding or making the time and doing the work. Informal, people who check in on me randomly on stuff that I'm doing, that they just want to figure out how I'm learning or stuff I'm providing value to a community via open source contribution. I've had that. I've had friends who do dumb stuff like stuff I shouldn't do. I've done this is my first meetup for this year that I've been to outside of organizing my own. Yes, because COVID also taught me to stay home. And I like shorts. I don't want to come outside. I'm sorry. But meetups online and offline, I've gotten better at doing Twitter stand-ups. Code Newbie used to have their meetups every night that you did ask 3 questions that you answer and learn a lot. There's a lot of small meetups on like topics, interviewing, growing, round 2 to 3, the levels 2 to 3 as a software professional. We're streaming now, so that's another way we can be a part of it. While I was at Magnolia, they were streaming, so you had people participating online as well as offline for the whole conference. Free Code Camp is my baby because it's an introduction level to code at all, and it helps way more people than other levels of getting introduced to code does, because it has both the online and offline community. So that's a thing that I love about it. Study groups, I was a part of a study group for a year, got me from being a hobbyist to a crafts person. Was pleasant and unpleasant at times. Then it comes to a place of finding your place in the community. If you're dedicated, you will know where your niche, you will find where you fit. But my biggest takeaway, no matter how you feel about yourself, is to contribute or participate. When I did the first hackathon I did in 2017, I could write HTML and CSS. That's it. Couldn't do anything else. What I did do is that I learned how to ask questions from a non-technical to a technical standpoint. So I'd ask, how does this service the customer? Because my parents are entrepreneurs, I came from business. So I understood how to ask those questions. I didn't know that the tech people didn't know how to ask that. But I participated, helped them write documentation, helped running the team, figuring out who needs to do what. I did color theory to make sure that it looked pretty. I made a logo. I can use Photoshop. That was my skill back then. But that's what I did. I gave what I knew to the team. Everybody here, no matter how small it is, do that. Come to the meetups, give the lightning talks, and the silliest, stupidest topic you think. Once it's approved, somebody's going to want to hear it. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how to write a doc file to migrate from computer to computer. I'm a Linux baby, a Mac is just meh, but I'm an Ubuntu baby. I want to figure out how to write a doc file. I've never seen a talk. I'd love one, never seen one. The problem is that when I probably learn how to do it, I'm probably going to have to give one on it because I've never seen it. So, community. This here helps people in different ways. This is what it did for me. My biggest takeaway from this is it helped me to grow. It forced me to acknowledge the fact that I have to do my part. In this room, there may be somebody who needs to do something new, and they always push it away because they don't want to do it or it makes them uncomfortable. You do not want friends like mine, but I pray you get them that they will go, oh yeah, you're doing this. Like me signing up here, I was voluntold that I would be here. I didn't ask to be here. I was told. Pratik goes, oh, you're giving your talk. I'm like, excuse me? He goes, you're giving your talk. I'm like, I don't like you. He's like, I don't care. You're still going to give it talk. I'm like, fine, I'll be there. You need people like that. All right. This one's kind of tricky for us introvert people. We don't like to talk about ourselves or the work that we do. The problem with it is that there's always somebody who needs our example to grow. I did not like Twitter till 2017. I went to Jingle Mingle and somebody took my phone and go, you're not on Twitter? I'm like, I'm there, but I don't use it. She signed me up, signed me in, and gave me all the tech groups and just let me loose. That opportunity afforded me, I got the attention of a couple of people just to go to boot camp. I'm a first generation immigrant. We literally learned to work. I had to learn how to take a vacation. I didn't know how to do it. And my mother laughed. Because she had to learn too. My grandparents are farmers and higglers, which people sell in the market, a truck driver, and a fisherman. They work from sun to sundown, so we don't know how to take vacation. When I was a teacher, summertime, I'm at summer school. Summertime, I'm at my friends who work at a computer lab to go learn new stuff. I don't know how to slow down. However, we need to learn new habits. So, everybody here, blog, Twitter, Twitch, participate. I don't care. And if you're too old to think you need to do, you know stuff that people need to know. Grammarly is your friend, download it, install it, use it, and move on. I can't spell, nobody cares, somebody will fix it. But spread the word. Use Twitter. Write stuff. Some of us here write really cool articles on stuff that we make or stuff that we know or the introductory level to the magic we wield or know about. Write about it because there's no literature out there for it. Right or wrong? I'm speaking to a dead one. Right or wrong?
Right.
Okay. Copy the content from LinkedIn, from wherever you write and post it on LinkedIn. It helps for those of us who want to be visible in the business world. Say Twitch already, YouTube, the same thing, but learn to sell yourself. You don't have, let me put this nicely. A Tesla is a crappy car. I don't care how anybody feels about it, it is a piece of crap. The build quality is crap. The reason why they sell so much is that they have learned magically how to sell. That's it. Chevy makes a better car, Nissan Leaf is definitely a better car. But Tesla has learned how to sell. They keep teasing us that the car can drive itself. And that's fine. Trucks has been doing it in Norway for at least 5 years before that. Again, nobody cares. Just learn to sell yourself. Do the work. Just work. It's going to be annoying. It's going to make you bored. But just do the work. Find your group. Find your groove. I'm a lo-fi, no distraction music kind of guy for 25 minutes. I can put in 4 to 6 of them before my attention just goes, whoops. Just find your group. It's your group. All right. I can cut this really short. Build the tutorial if you don't understand the concept. Write code out. Do not cut and paste because your fingers will remember how to write stuff. Then add something to it. Don't care what it is. Just add something to it. feel the dreams, build it and they will come. Yeah, that literally happens. Okay, the thing that everybody doesn't like, or tend to shy away from because they don't think they're good enough or nobody wants to hear about their little thing that they had. The internet is built on open source code. That's it. Whether you like it or not, there is way more small license in there to say, hey, we took this code from this from here, this from here. I tend to read the agreements that, you get your phone and they're like, click OK. I'm the guy who sometimes go, I'm bored, where's the license? And I will scroll and read the whole damn thing. Half the time we sell our souls. I wish I'd find one of them that has a clause in there that tells me that I get 10 grand in case I read it, but I haven't found it yet. Give me time. Because somebody won one a couple of years ago. A teacher found one. Because she read the whole thing. I wish they'd put it on car rental agreements because I tend to read the whole damn thing, but nobody wants to do it for me. But open source code, you contributing in the way that guy did, because thank God I don't have to go through history because he did it for me. It makes you a social learner. So, for example, if I teach, oh crap, I keep forgetting that. I'm so sorry. If I'm teaching about, for example, I love Ruby. So if I'm going through something in Ruby that somebody gets, I become a better craftsperson at it by explaining it to you. You can also give a different perspective on it to me. Because nobody knows, there's a million ways to cook chicken. There's a million ways to learn the same thing. Experience, he said that already, so I don't have to cover that. It's, when I say massive learning opportunity, between fixing the problem, pushing from GitHub, communicating what you've done, writing your tests, and getting it approved, that's a whole cycle of knowing how to sell yourself. And as usual, everybody loves green squares. So right now on GitHub, the last time when I wrote this, if you wrote open source contribution in GitHub, you got 40,000 different repos. And the first 100 tends to be well documented for whatever you want to do. There is an open source first timer project for every language that tends to be well documented. Every language. I don't know why people still touch Haskell, but that's on you. I've read the documentation for Haskell, and all I have to say is that is witchcraft and magic, and I'm never touching it unless I need to. Civic hacking. This was Marta Civic Hack number 2, about 9:30 on the second night. We were all solving problems around the Marta transit system back in like 2017, 2018. And it was just like teams and teams of people. Marta eventually took like 6 or 7 ideas from this to fix some of the problems that they had. So the API that tracked the trains got better. They actually built out or figured out what type of system to use for paratransit. They were literally using a whiteboard to track all their calls for the day. They actually built out the system. There was a thing where the tap at the trains got better. Tap to load your card, that got better. Recognition at the door got better from that hackathon. So little things these are important. They always have problems that helps you to become a better craftsperson by contributing to solve problems associated with your city, state, government. Code for America tends to have really cool descriptions of problems they have, and if you work around them long enough, majority of the time you tend to get invited to, hey, would you like a job? Or they know somebody who will go, hey, would you like a job? I just said all that. Last but not least, in this community, I asked everybody to be the best version of themselves. Yes, you're weird. Yes, you like computers. Nobody cares, and you may never fit in. If you came from sports or being popular, yeah, I can talk for myself. I never was. I was just me. After a while, I found my groove. I'm a grown adult with 25 pounds of Legos at my home. I have Game Boys all over the place. I do not own any consoles because if I ever do, I will never write a line of code. I have given up buying and or reading books again. Attention problem. So yeah, be the best version of you. It's needed. Nationality, whatever you want, it is needed because the software that we create serves everybody, and we need to address all the problems that we never want to talk about. So be the best version of you because you're needed. I ain't got nothing else. Again, my name is Nerando.
All right, any questions? Questions from Renfro or
Go ahead.
me or? All right, do we want to show them what the period does on GitHub?
Oh, hold on. Let me see.
We've been holding the thrall. Maybe we should. Did you want to be a music interlude?
Really? That just popped in my head.
The fact that you do it is in.
Nice. So I've learned that there's a correlation between music and code. Free Code Camp over the last 5 years has had this thing where a lot of, where is it, before here?
What? Just press, go to the readme.md, select it. Now just press the period. There we go.
Yes.
VS Code.
And it works.
Yep. You get VS Code editor from GitHub right off the bat. And then you get like, if it's like a Java, you can actually set up, do some baseline files,
Come on,
do all that stuff from GitHub.
Yeah, it will work and work relatively
Yes.
well. I have never used it, but if I need to walk through the actual code, it works.
Yeah.
Sometimes, so like,
It's a little sneaky. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's. There you go.
yeah, it works. It works. So before you go, this doesn't work. It works.
Yep.
Now, a lot of times when you start a Visual Studio Code lecture session, it takes you to the web version instead of your local version first.
Nice.
Yeah, I tried it. It works fine. It works great.
It works great. And then you have to see people actually do it through like their iPads.
I have never seen that.
Good job. Really stuff. So yeah, so the thing is that the way they've got it set up is that you can actually go in and get like a free, like you can do like a free Java. It's like a free Java compile, so you can even do like basic files. After a certain point, it's going to say, you
Yeah.
you got to pay up, right?
Yeah.
But play with it. I mean, that's part of the
Yeah.
exploration.
Yeah.
I mean, and like I said, I think Ron did a really great job. The first lightning talk, that first small commit, that first issue that you open, that first even bug report on the issue, first question asked, it is that once you're in it, it starts to build, doesn't it?
Because, so here's a trick. I got sick I had a traffic accident in June, got sick in July. Made all my talks, submitted all my talks, forgot about them, because I'm dealing with working post-traffic car accident. All right, cool. August rolls around, and I'm like, I'm getting emails, I'm catching up. You've been selected to go to the conference. I'm like, okay. You've been selected to go to the conference. I'm like, okay. You've been selected. I'm like, wait, something's off here. In 1 week, 13th to the 17th, I had 3 conference talks. Jackson, Mississippi, 2 in Atlanta. I was working too. Boy, I had a rough time, but if I never made this, and I didn't want to make I didn't want to submit any talks. My friends literally go, we're going to bully you. And that's what happened. But doing the first talk will open, like, this is a new opportunity. I do not write, I've written Java code 3 times that I can remember. Say, but I can give a talk on how open source will help you to better become a software craftsperson in problem. Because the skill sets are the same. It got me a new opportunity to see new faces that I've never seen before. And Connect Tech is going to basically do the same thing again. So I'd urge everybody to not think that you can't do it. Just do it. Do it scared. What if I say the wrong thing? So you write
I
bad code
did.
all the time.
I mean, I'll put it this way. The other thing people would get concerned about, they're like, okay, I'm gonna get ambushed up on the stage, right? I'm gonna get people to ask a question, they're gonna try to trip me up. I've lost count of the number of talks. Okay, I'm old. But I can tell you there was only one time one person tried to trip me up out of, I won't say hundreds of talks. It doesn't happen. The audience is wanting to learn. And when you're doing the lightning talks, you're getting started, it's okay. You know, you gotta, and the audience is really forgiving. So try. And that's what the talk's like. As far as the issues, you open up an issue, like I said, the 3 rules. There's a bug, state the problem, state how you got it, the version, and just the orders to make it happen. Issue, what it does, why it will help the project. That's a successful issue. You know, and when you submit code, just know it's passive voice. This is I'll tell you what, it is awesome to get into this field because, like I said, you'll learn, get to meet. Me and Nerando got to meet each other at Refactor, and I just volunteered at Refactor. I just was like, and we and him started talking, and they have to ask us about the Mandalorian head. That's interesting. Well, we can't do that on recording. You know, the people that it's at home, you got to catch us live for us to tell you about the
thing.
The thing. All right, folks. Thank y'all for coming. Have a wonderful evening. Safe journey home. By the way, take pizza with you, because if not, I got to eat it. So, thank you, folks. Have a great night.
Thank you.